Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Ursula B, and welcome back to another episode of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together podcast. You're going to join us in the celebration of some Black girl magic, some self-discovery, and empowerment. So this isn't just a podcast, but it's also a movement and definitely a sisterhood. So I want to let you know that our tribe has gone over. Ah, can you hear this? My audio. And we're back. Hey, Candy. All right, you had some technical difficulties, but I am back. So, yes, as I was saying, our tribe has grown over 100,000 downloads in over 70 countries. So, we are global, okay? So, if you want to join this movement, hit that subscribe button on this YouTube channel, share this live with at least 2 friends. Make sure you follow us and add me to your streaming platform and give your girl a 5-star review. So we're ready to get our shift together. I want you to press play, get ready for some laughs, some love, and everything in between. And let's get this podcast party started.
This for the queen, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog.
All right, and I am back. So tonight we are going to have a master class. That's what I'm going to call it, a master class in some topics that we do not like to talk about. I do not like to talk about it, but I'm also in a season, and I know you all are in a season of growth. And I also realize that this is a cycle and a part of life. So I have this wonderful guest coming on board. And she is going to give us some insight. And I'm going to bring my lovely guest, Petra, out of the waiting room. Hello, beautiful.
Hello. So glad to be here.
So glad you are here as well. How's your day been?
My day has been good, I have to say. There's no snow in my neck of the woods, so it's a good day.
Oh, that's right. You are up. Yeah. So I grew up with snow. If I never see it again, I'm actually okay with it.
Me too. Trust me, me too.
We need to be on an island somewhere, right?
Yes.
We do. So everyone, this is the level Petra Gordon. I'll let you tell everybody, who you are, what you do, and then we can go into what the topic of discussion is today.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ursula, for having me on your show tonight. My name is Petra Gordon. I am a grief therapist, grief coach, and grief educator. And I focus on just helping people to navigate grief and loss. And I specialize in working with widows who have lost their husband either through sudden loss or anticipatory grief where the loss was expected. But really, I have a heart and passion for widows, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. as to where that passion comes from. But I'm just excited to be here.
Thank you so much. And I want you all put a 1 in the comment section if you think Petra has this. Her voice is like a warm blanket to me when it's really cold outside. It's like a warm blanket. I don't know. Her voice just gets me. It's very comforting. Oh, okay. We already have a lot of love coming in. Welcome,
Oh, thank
Petra. And
you.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Come get this commentary. I love it. So let's get right into this topic of discussion. We're going to talk about how to cope with grief
Mhm.
and loss. And
Yes.
what has been your catalyst? You talk about that your specialty is with widows. Do you want to share some more about that?
Sure. So back in 2018, my husband, he died unexpectedly. So I was about 38 years old at the time, and he was 42. And I left him for maybe about an hour. Came back, found him unresponsive in his office in our home, and they tried to resuscitate him. Yeah, but he didn't make it. He didn't make it.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. When I've gone through your IG, I guess I didn't go far back enough, or maybe you didn't. That was my assumption that he had
Right.
been ill. I didn't know
Well,
that.
I mean, he did have diabetes, he did have kidney failure, but at the same time, I never anticipated that he would die. Like I just felt like, okay, he's gonna bounce back, he'll get a kidney. I mean, I just had this expectation he's gonna come through this. And so it was so shocking. Like I had no preparation for him to be gone in a blink of an eye. So that experience um, set me on this course. But I got to be honest, I initially wasn't even looking to serve widows or do anything with grief. In fact, I was like, I don't want nothing to do with widows. I felt I was young. I felt that this was ridiculous that I was a widow. And so I was just like so resistant to it. But I really feel like God nudged me. And that still small voice kept on getting louder and louder. What about the
Mm,
widow? It got
yeah.
so loud I couldn't ignore it. And so that's what really got me on the journey to say, let me serve widows. And then when I started to see how people treat those that are grieving, I was like, oh my gosh, what?
How are they
Yeah.
treating the widows?
Treating widows are just people grieving. Like it was very, people will say insensitive things. They will say things like, well, you're still young, so you can get married again and have kids. Meanwhile, my husband just died. Or maybe if you were here, he would have gotten help sooner and he probably wouldn't have died. You know,
What?
so there was things that people would say that were so insensitive, or they'll use scripture, because I'm a Christian, and they'll
Mm,
use it almost like a cliche, as if by you quoting that, it changes the fact that he's dead. So there were all these things. I was like, this is wild. I'm like, people really don't understand how to support someone grieving. They really don't know. And they're
mm,
causing unintentional harm because of that ignorance. And so that sent me on the journey to say, I need to learn more about grief and how I can educate people, because folks are out here hurting folks that are grieving.
wow. I did not know all of that at all. And I love what you said about we need to learn. So if I could share and sprinkle a little of my lived
Sure,
experience.
absolutely.
So, matter of fact, I had mentioned it briefly a couple episodes back when I was 10 years old. There's certain words I can't say on YouTube, but I remember at 10 years old, you don't think about kids unaliving themselves.
Mhm.
And that's what happened with one of my classmates. And that's the first ever death that I was encountered with someone close to me. And I remember I went home and I told one of my parents, and they were like, just get over it. That's the cycle of life. He was
Mm,
only 10. You'll be fine. We
wow.
never talked about it ever again. And I physically felt that in my chest. I mean,
Yes.
at 10 years old, I didn't know that body keeps the score and none of that. I just knew I had this weight on my chest.
Right.
And then decades had gone by where no one close to me had passed away, right?
Right.
So now here I am this year. There's been several losses, and I'm like, and it took me a while to figure it out that I never learned how to grieve. I didn't even know that that was
Mm.
a thing, but I do believe when you stay still and quiet,
Mm-hmm.
things come to. I just had these downloads, and I was like, I don't know how to grieve,
Yeah.
and I didn't know. I know that healing isn't what's the word? I know it doesn't have a handbook,
Right.
but I just don't know. I do know it's okay to feel your feelings and cry. I've
Right.
cried so much this year. I
Yeah.
mean, so much, but I don't know. I just feel like I need it more. And I don't know. Anyways,
Right.
and I let you know, but I want to let the listeners know that I had been wanting to reach out to Petra it's been 11 months now. And because I've had so much loss over the past years, it's like every
Yes.
6 weeks, I
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't ready. And a lot of people who listen to me, we have some of the same group of friends, dear, beautiful souls. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I pressed the send button. And now here we are on December 27th.
I love it. I love it. That's
Speaking.
awesome.
But I said all of that to say is that it's always good to have a support system, and that if we don't know, we don't know, and it's okay to ask for help or seek counsel or insight from people like yourself
Mhm.
who do know or can
Right.
share tips.
Right.
Yeah, that was a lot. But like how was your family? Were they the same way as well? Just insensitive but not meaning to be that way? Friends and family?
Well, here's the thing what I've learned about grief. It's universal. Grief and loss is universal, but we all grieve differently. We all manifest it differently. And I
Mm,
think for me, my father had died the year before from ALS. And then my husband died the following year. But the grief that I experienced with my dad was very different from what I experienced with the loss of my husband. And so when I was navigating through that loss, for me, I was like, well, am I doing this right? Because I wasn't, I was still able to function. And so in my mind, when I thought about what grief should look like, I shouldn't be able to function. I should be maybe in a fetal position, curled up somewhere. And that wasn't my experience. And I thought maybe I'm in so much shock that as time goes on, I'm going to have the breakdown. But it never came. And so that's when I started to learn that we can't compare our griefs with one another and say it should look like that. No, we ought to really allow ourselves to explore our own grief and embrace our own experience and be okay with the fact that it may not look like someone else's. Doesn't mean I'm not grieving because it doesn't look like your grief. It's still grief. It just may look different.
is there such a thing as the wrong way to grieve?
No, there's none. There is not a
Mm,
wrong way or right way. The right way is the way that is best for you, which can look different for you and different for me. So some of the things that people would say to do for grieving, that didn't resonate with me. And so that's why I always encourage people, explore, get curious to find out what really meets my need and helps me move through this and work through this, because it's not going to be one size fits all. We can give
mm,
suggestions and say, maybe you can try this or have you considered that? And some things will land and some things won't. That's why we don't say to people the 6 stages and this is the way it's supposed to look and there's no flexibility. No, I believe that we all can navigate through grief and it can be different. And some things that are helpful for me may not be as helpful to you. And so we're learning what works for me on this healing
mhm.
journey.
I love what Come Get This commentary said. She said, yes, he or she, I'm not sure, but they said, yes, the look of grief is different for everyone. Grief is not a cookie cutter format.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. That's really good insight. In my child's mind, I'm thinking that it was a playbook.
Yeah. No. I wish it was that easy. I wish it was as easy as the 6 stages. But grief is not linear. It is not this. It is unpredictable. It comes in waves. One day you're feeling okay, then all of a sudden you get triggered and it knocks you down. Like it's just it. There is no box for grief, right? And we can't put it in
Right.
one. We can't. Anyone that tries to
Mm-hmm.
doesn't understand grief.
Mm. So you talked about grief being linear. Are there any balances where
It's not
someone
linear.
it
Grief
is
is
not
not linear.
linear?
No,
Excuse me.
it's
Yeah.
not.
Since grief is not linear, is there any way a person, how can a person find balance where they want to honor the memory of someone, but they also want to move forward? Or
Right.
is there such a thing, even with the healing comes the what is it, the survivor's guilt with it?
Absolutely. It's possible to heal and to take steps forward. I feel that the first thing that we need to be able to do is acknowledge the pain. Most times, most people don't want to deal with the pain. And so sometimes the coping mechanisms can be harmful to us. So sometimes people move into substance use and an
Mhm.
overuse of substances. Sometimes it's like using sex as a way to
Mhm.
deal with it. Some people just dive into work and it's just, let me just keep busy so I don't have to feel this and I don't have to deal with it. But the truth is, it doesn't go. And so we have to be able to work through it. And that's the only way really to move through grief, is allowing yourself to feel it and work through it. And I mean, I could tell you, there was so much resistance that I personally had. I was like, can I just step on the gas and just power through this? It wasn't possible. I had to stop resisting and just allow myself to feel the feelings, feel the hurt, sit with those feelings, and
Mhm.
know that it's temporary. It will pass, and it does. It comes and it goes.
But when you say it's temporary, um, how do I word this?
Mhm.
Yes, it is temporary, but can temporary be, I know I shouldn't put like a timetable, but what
Right.
if temporary is decades or weeks or months? I mean, is that a thing as well?
And when I say temporary, I mean the magnitude of the pain. So how I felt on day one, and sometimes even now when I have waves of grief, I feel the pain of that. I'll cry. I'll have those moments. When I say temporary, is that the same intense feeling of pain is not constant with no break. I may feel a peg
Oh.
of the pain, and then I allow myself to feel it, and then it will go. And then there may be another moment in this another season where I'll feel the peg of that pain, and then it will be released. And so it comes and it goes. But in terms of grief, I'm of the belief that grief never dies, it never ends. One of my
Mm.
mentors would say, well, when do you stop loving the person that has died?
Oh,
And I thought,
wow.
well, you never stop loving the person who has died. So the only way for you to no longer grieve that person is for that love to have died or for that person to come back to life. And so I'm of the belief that grief is love. And so we're always
Mm.
going to carry grief. The key is not to allow grief to dominate our lives so that we're no longer functioning and we're no longer able to still enjoy the things that are good about life.
So when you say no longer functioning, what does that look like in your brain, in your mind's eye, when when you say when you can no longer function? Because sometimes I feel like you can have functioning
Absolutely.
grief or depression and, like you said,
Absolutely.
power forward.
Absolutely. And I was one of those people. On the
Mhm.
outside, looked like she bounced back. She's doing great, but feeling empty, feeling unfulfilled, feeling like something's missing. Nothing's really bringing contentment, just existing and not living. And that's functional. Dysfunctional or not being able to function. I shouldn't call it dysfunctional, but unable to function is really not being able to do some of the day-to-day basic things, to bathe, to brush your
Oh,
teeth, to eat,
yeah.
sometimes take care of your kids, to take care of your home, to return to work. Like it's affecting your life to the point. it's detrimental. Right now, it's moving to a chronic state where you're not able to really function in life by doing the basic day-to-day stuff. So that's what I mean when I say not functioning, meaning it totally has shut you down and it's prolonged. It's going beyond the 4 months. It's going beyond 6 months. Now we're going into a year, and it's just like you have shut down completely to life. At that, yeah.
So some of the ladies that take your courses or in your program, what if they say that they've been feeling like this, and how can you tell if it's depression and or grief or both?
Right. And so the ones that I work with in my private practice, they've had different losses, whether that be sibling, brother, parent. And so I would say for the most part, the ones that I've been dealing with, they're still being able to function. But they'll have periods where the tears will come at different times. The relationships start to get impacted. So maybe if they have a boyfriend, they're just not able to really connect with that person for them to understand what they're going through. So they may be short, they may be abrupt, and it may be feeling like that partner may feel like they're taking it out on them. It's just not knowing how to deal with all of these emotions and things being out of control. So it's really starting to help people to focus on where they are right now in terms of understanding how they want to be feeling, how they want to be functioning, and what does that look like for them? Because it looks different for everybody.
Absolutely.
And so really getting them to narrow down, okay, you're behaving in this way, it's impacting on your life this way. How do you want to be experiencing your grief? How do you want others around you to experience you while you're grieving?
I never thought about that. Wait, repeat that first part again. How do you want your grief to be?
How do you want to experience your grief? And how do you want those around you to experience you while you're grieving? If you're not naturally a person that snaps and that is angry and that's agitated and just difficult to be around, you got to ask yourself, okay, do I want those that generally love me to experience this, which could be painful, of me being short, of me being critical, of me shutting them out? Do I want my loved ones to experience that? And if the answer is no, how then can I be intentional with my own healing so that those around me can experience me differently? I'm not going to hide my grief. I'm not going to suppress it. I'm not going to pretend like I'm happy, but I'm learning how to model and show those that love me how to witness my grief in a way that is where they can hold space, which is being neutral. So you're not judging me, but you're allowing me to feel what I feel without being critical of it. And then I'm giving you grace because this is new for you too. And you don't know how to support me.
Wow. I never thought about the other person. Or, well, let me back up. I think about the individual's family, like their immediate, but I never thought about, okay, well, my friend passed away. So I'm thinking about their siblings, but I'm not thinking about my friends who don't know her or them.
Absolutely.
Never thought about that.
Absolutely. I had a client that was, people who love her, but they didn't know how to be around her. And she didn't know how to help them be around her. And so they would give unsolicited advice, thinking that she needed them to tell her how to be. Maybe you should just do fill in the blank. And so I was like, well, they're not going to know. And it's hard for us to wrap our mind around the fact that we have to educate people around this, but we do because we're so ill-equipped as a society when it comes to grief. And so I encourage clients, let people know what's helpful and what's not. Let them know, you know what? I know you love me, but the unsolicited advice is not helpful.
So what would you suggest that they say? Because I feel certain things are just cliche, and I've always felt like you have to say something comforting. So then I hear, and I've said even the cliche, I'm sending condolences, definitely the prayers, because I feel very empathetic for anyone going through that. But like, oh, I'm sorry, but I had somebody I know years ago, her mom had passed away, and she told me, she said it aggravated her more when people would say, sorry, is there anything that they can do? Because the one thing she wanted was to have her mother back, and she knew that no one on this planet can make that happen.
You got it.
What do you say?
And that is the thing that we have been misinformed about, because we think we need to say something. We feel that, and this is the thing that we all naturally do. I want to fix it. Here's the truth. You can never fix this, because you can't say anything that's going to make this feel better, because you can't bring that person back to life.
Right.
And so what I say to people, forget trying to say the right thing, because you're not going to have anything that's going to make this feel okay. What I tell people is be present with them. That means sit with them. Sometimes silence is the greatest gift that you can give someone. You can say, I'm sorry. You can say, I'm thinking of you, that I love you. You can embrace people. You can sit with them. But you don't have to fill the room with words, because I know in my own experience, that didn't help me. I often would leave this group of people and go into a separate room just to be away from all of the cliches and the things being said. I found more value in people just being present, whether that's cooking me something to eat, whether that turned on gospel music, but they didn't have to feel like they have to try to cheer me up. In fact, if people try to cheer you up while you're grieving, that can be offensive. Allow people the grace to feel what they feel.
Petra, you are just hitting on I never thought about that. And just, now that I'm even thinking about it, because in therapy, I didn't know. I mean, I know now that parts of me have that people pleasing part of me, and that rescuing, to fill the air up with noise.
Yeah. And you know what? It's less about the person grieving and more about ourselves. Because if we're trying to support someone, we feel uncomfortable that they're going through this. And so we try to say things not necessarily to help them, but to make ourselves feel better. So we think this is what's going to help people.
You know
because
what?
This is what would help me. But it's like, honey, that does not help me, because it's not even about me. It's about you.
Is that
It's
selfish?
about you.
Is
Yes,
it
it is selfish. It's very selfish. But people, I'll tell you, this hoax just blew my mind. I'm like, I don't understand. But people are selfish. They will get upset with you because you don't return text messages or don't call them back or don't. I'm just like, but if they're not responding to your text messages, give them grace. But again, it comes back to people making it about themselves versus about the person who's actually grieving this loss. And so we got to step back and say, is this about me? Or is it about me really supporting the person that's grieving? And what do they most need right now? Care enough to ask the question, care enough to be able to adjust what's a knee-jerk reaction, which is, let me just say the right thing.
Yes.
Pause and just say, I'm here. I also tell people, look, anticipate some basic needs and ask permission to fulfill those needs. Maybe it's helping with laundry. Maybe it's helping with the kids. These are things that you can anticipate. She may need some support. He may need some support with. And let me ask, can I do these things for you? And let them decide yay or nay. Don't assume. Don't assume.
So what? Oh, you all, I see all these comments coming in. I'm going to read them.
Okay.
But you're dropping a lot of gems, because you're really unlocking something. And I know I'm not the only person that's feeling this unlock. And to go back what you said about asking, I've never asked, but I do know firsthand someone that they lost their child in a horrific way. And I would send her text messages, and I would tell her, You don't have to reply. I just want to let you know I'm thinking of you or whatever. This was a while ago.
Yeah.
So when I saw her maybe about 9 months later, and she did say, she's like, Ursula, I'm glad you said that. I didn't have to text you back.
Yes.
And that always stuck with me. And I really never got upset that she didn't. I mean, that is a lot, but I will admit, now that you have unlocked that my past ways has been selfish, not maliciously, but it's still selfish.
100%. But everyone has that experience. I didn't know any better, because how would we? Who has had these conversations? Who has modeled to us how to navigate grief, how to talk about it, we've seen no examples of this in our life. Even what you shared when you were 10, that 10-year-old, like, brush it away, keep it moving. That's how we dealt with grief. And so we got people walking around with unaddressed grief. And then when someone else is hurting, it's so uncomfortable to us. We just want to put a slap a Band-Aid on it and rush them through so that we can feel better. And it doesn't work that way.
Oh my God. That's so true.
Yeah.
Because it's triggering. I feel like it's a ping pong trigger back and forth. Yeah. How did it make you feel when you would be in these rooms and people were unintentionally saying these statements to you?
Let me tell you something, the real truth. I remember one time, it was probably the first week after my husband died, and people were just coming in droves in the home. And I just felt so like I was there in body, but I felt so alone. And here I was night after night, preparing food. And I was like, my mom and I went to like this patty store to get patties. And I just felt like I was erupting, like I was like a volcano ready to explode. And I said to my mom, I feel like I'm going to explode. And she's like, don't worry, let's get to the car. We got to the car and I said, I want to scream. She's like, scream. And I screamed to the top of my lungs in that car. I had to release the tension that was building up inside of me. And what I love about my mom is that she didn't say, come on, why are you being so emotional? Relax. No, she held space. She was neutral. She allowed me to release that tension, because if I kept all of that in me, that would cause me illness. And so you want people around you that can hold space and be neutral and allow you to feel what you feel.
Right.
Whatever it is. If it's crying, if it's I need to scream, whatever it is, give that person the grace. And so I've had to learn how to find ways to have an outlet, because I recognize that the society is grief illiterate, and they likely will not give me the support that I need because they don't know how. And so I had to find ways to move through my grief, because I knew I wasn't going to get it from people. I knew that already, based on how people were responding to me. I mean, it was just wild. I write it in my book. I talk about some of the crazy stuff. It was wild. I was like, what is going on here? I just don't understand this.
Did you ever go off on anyone and just...
You know what? No, I did not. I was confused. I didn't get it, because my father had died and people didn't treat me this way. But people be like, Petra, we should get together for tea. I'm like, yeah, sure. Crickets. There'll be no follow-up. There'll be no actual scheduling of anything. It was just people giving fillers to say things that they think they should be saying, but there's no follow-through. And so it's kind of like,
wow,
what is going on here? So if you're going to be helpful, then follow through on that help. And that whole question of, if you need anything, let me know. Don't ask that question, because you really don't want the answer to that. People say that because that's the thing they think that is to say, but it's so loaded. It's like, there's a 1,000 things that you could do, but will you really do it? So no, the griever's not going to tell you.
Ooh.
It's too loaded. So I say, don't ask that. Anticipate. What are some basic needs? And with permission, ask, can I do this for you? Can I run these errands for you? Can I help with the food? Can I help with the kids? Can I go with you to the funeral home? Like, anticipate the needs. Don't ask them if there is anything, because yes, there is a whole lot. I'm sorry, I'm getting passionate because
I want you to, because I'm learning. I'm just, this is because this is new for a lot of us.
Yeah.
I feel just in general, especially Black people, like we had to be strong. I mean, going back to our ancestors, emotions, you would be unalive just having that. So I just feel sometimes it's just been ingrained in us just to keep it
Yes.
moving, keep
Yeah.
it pushing, because we got things to do.
Right.
And yeah, and then when things happen uneventful, it's like, okay, this has happened, like you said, compartmentalize it and let's keep moving. And then it's just still a lot going on.
Still a lot going on, and you hit it on the head, because what I've learned is healing will not happen automatically. I don't care how many years ago someone wounded you and you think, oh, time is going to heal the wounds. Time, that's a lie. Time does not heal all wounds. And we do not intentionally work on our healing and be active participants in healing and working through our grief and working through our old wounds. They will not heal on its own, and it will start to trickle into other areas of our lives. And then we will wonder, why am I still feeling so despondent and not fulfilled? And I'm just going through the motions, because there are things that have not been addressed. And it's uncomfortable, and it's not easy, but it needs to be addressed.
What do you mean by it can trickle into different parts of our lives? What does that look like?
So in terms of, if you have emotional wounds and you haven't dealt with it, it will
Oh,
impact on your level of trust, your ability to feel secure, your ability to form relationships with people. When your grief is on process, it can have impacts on you physically. It can have impacts on your mental, in terms of how you think about yourself and how you see the worldview around you. So when we
right.
leave things unattended, it impacts on our worldview, it impacts on our behavior, it impacts on the way that we think. And sometimes, because we're unaware, we're seeing things not really coming together in our lives, and we don't understand. We need to go back to the root and figure out, what's the root of this? Because what we're seeing is a symptom. But if we go back to really looking in our lives, it
Yeah.
started somewhere. Something was left undone that we need to go back and heal from, so that we can
Oh,
take steps forward.
and as you're speaking, all I can hear is it was a trigger for abandonment wounds. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah. So many,
girl.
girl, so many things come up
Oh,
in grief, and those wounds, those emotional wounds, will surface. And then you realize the things that you thought you were healed from, I wasn't really healed from this at all, because I did no work on it. We just, as a culture, push on through. Someone hurt me, someone let me down, someone broke my trust. All right, it hurt me, but I keep going. And we never talk about it. We never deal with it.
let me tell you something. You are so right because Petra, let me tell you, I don't want to date this because people may know who I'm talking about. But I'm gonna tell you. Okay, so back in the day, I dated this man. It wasn't a good relationship.
Mhm.
It was a situationship. Let me keep it
I
honest.
got you. I got you.
Situationship.
Yes.
Well, he ended up passing away.
Mm,
And I had already separated myself about a month, actually about 3 months before he transitioned.
right.
And even though it was a situationship and I had already moved on, but
Yeah.
had I really?
Had you
So
really?
then swept it under the rug and like, well, you know what? He's no longer here. It's unfortunate. And I was sad, but I
Right.
swept it under the rug. How
Right.
about this?
Hmm.
A year and a half later, I'm at a birthday party. Why did his twin brother walk through the door and I literally broke out in a sweat?
Oh,
I
wow.
started shaking and I almost passed out right in the
Wow.
middle of the lounge.
Yeah.
It was like a ghost had come, and they are identical
Oh,
twins.
wow.
You could not tell them apart. I've been with them before where people thought they were the other twin.
Right.
And something about I actually, now that I think about it, I disassociated because I don't remember anything after trying to make myself not pass out because I
Right.
don't know, I was just having a lot going on physically, and I felt my body shutting down just because I couldn't handle the shock of seeing him walk through the door, but it wasn't him.
Right. Right. Right.
And I didn't, as you're speaking, it just popped in my head like that's what I've done, but it goes back to
Yeah.
that core belief, sweep it under the rug. It'll be all right from when I was
Yes.
10 years old.
Absolutely. But it's not all right. And
No.
I don't blame our parents and our grandparents because they didn't know any better. They only messaged to us what was messaged to them.
Yeah.
And so you don't know what you don't know. And even more in places of worship, I'm a believer, love Jesus, but what I would find is that there's no room to allow you to really mourn. It's like, hurry up because, he's gone to a better place. Yes, we're excited about that, but it does not negate the fact that the person that you love is not physically here. So people need
Right.
grace to mourn, to hurt, to feel that missing person and loss. Allow that. One does not negate the other. You can still be a person of faith and grieve and be sad that one person you love is not here.
See, that's another thing. There was a lot of spiritual bypassing in my upbringing. So you're right. Just like you said, they are in a better place, and
Right.
you just feel like you're in this meadow, just walking around, just lost. And
Yeah.
oh, do you see the sparks coming off of my head?
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
prepared, which I'm still glad because I knew this was going to be a good conversation. Everybody listening, everything I prepared for this wonderful soul in front of me, it's in the Windows background. I have not asked one question.
That's all good. This is organic and natural. I love it.
May I read some of the comments before we run out of time?
Absolutely. By all means. I'm going with the flow.
Hey, bravo with Sheila. Good evening. I want to go back to what Candy Washington said, but we got in the flow. I was going to ask you this, and then she typed it. Speaking of alignment, when we're talking about grieving and loss of people, and I wanted to get your perspective on grieving the person, even though they are physically still here.
Oh, yes.
So may I read this comment she said? And I was thinking it. And then about 5 minutes later, Candy said, the most intense grief that I have ever felt hasn't been about someone dying. It's been about the death of who I thought people were and versions of who I thought I was going to be.
Ooh, that's good.
When she wrote it, isn't
that's
it?
good. And that is so, because now we're moving into the non-death related losses. And I feel like that does not get as much emphasis as the death related losses. But there are so many of us who have navigated a loss of identity, a loss of relationships, a loss of health, a loss of a job. We have loved ones who have dementia, and who we knew them to be are no longer. So we start grieving long before someone actually dies. But what's to her point about those types of losses, it doesn't get dealt with because we think it's not that big of a deal because at least someone didn't die. But it's still a loss.
So is that like gaslighting ourselves?
Well, you know what? It's really a lack of awareness that all losses, there's grief to it. And so all losses deserve to be acknowledged, to be witnessed, to be talked about, to be processed. And so whether it's a loss of identity, whether it's a loss of relationship, it's still a loss and it has an impact. And so we are not to dismiss it, to say, oh, but at least it's not death. No, it needs to be worked through. It needs to be addressed. And so finding what are those safe spaces, sometimes it's through counseling. Sometimes it's through a coach. Sometimes it's being in a supportive group where there are people who have similar experiences that are sharing about their losses. but you find what resonates for you that helps you on that healing journey. But it needs to be processed. It needs to be witnessed and acknowledged because it's still a loss. And with every loss, there's some grief that you need to work through.
Woo! Okay, so this brings, I'm just going to go down the list. There's some really good, really, let me know because I don't want to keep you over also. But these
girl, I am good. I'm here to share and talk and have good conversation. I'm here for it.
Okay, good. So I'm going to ping pong, but Candy also said, so here it is. So is unhealed grief, does that become depression?
Doesn't have to become depression. Doesn't have to become depression. Sometimes people have situational depression, where it's something that's happening within that particular, it's based on the situation and it may be not as extensive or chronic. Sometimes I've learned about functional depression, where on the outside, it looks like you're doing everything, but you're not okay on the inside of you. Yeah. I can still go to work. I can still be task oriented, but I'm not doing okay inside. My thoughts are intrusive. I don't feel really good about myself. The negative self-talk is there, but I'm still doing what I need to do. I'm still taking care of all the people I need to take care of, but inside, I'm not okay. But not every grief turns into depression. But when it's unprocessed grief, there's wounds and hurt that has not been dealt with. And so when we don't deal with wounds, there will be an impact on other areas of your life. And you'll start to notice. You start to notice yourself. People around you will notice too. You're not okay. Something's not right here. And that's when you start to see that your life is not coming into alignment in the way that you know it to be. It's like, okay, maybe I need some support to help me navigate through this.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. I like that with the support. I'm actually going back into one-on-one therapy.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's just, it's time again. It is. Okay, come get this commentary. Said, right, we think they will come through. Losing someone in the blink of an eye is immediately life-changing. You have no time to think, let alone catch your breath.
That's real. That's real. That's real. And people don't get that, right? Because they're on the outside looking in. And so they're thinking, okay, it's been a month, it's been 4 months, aren't you over this by now? It's been a year. What? And so people, because again, it comes back to people they want to be comfortable. But things can't be the same for you because you're not the same after this loss. You have changed as a result of this loss. And not everyone is comfortable with the fact that you changed and that this change has come as a result of losing someone that you love. And so instead of really taking pause to say, let me understand what you're going through, people will either judge or they will misunderstand your grief, or they will criticize it, or they want to rush you through it. If you want to talk about, don't talk about that person, or, every time you talk about them, it makes you feel sad. But if that's what I need to do,
right.
You need the grace to do it.
So that goes back to that selfish, I feel that that's what you meant, because then it becomes more about us and not the person.
Not about the person grieving. And I think my rule of thumb when it comes to grief, if what I'm doing to help me grieve is causing me more harm, then I need to look at not doing it. So if every time I look at my husband's pictures and it debilitates me, I'm floored out. And every time I do it, I just get worse and worse. Then for a season, I probably need to stop looking at those pictures and find my way to navigate through my grief in a way that's actually serving me and helping me to move through it versus keeping me on replay of maybe the incident and the circumstances of the death. Because if I just allow myself to do activities that keep me stuck or make it worse, then
Mm-hmm.
I never step forward. I'm just trapped in time.
Oh.
And it's like rerun, repeat. And it's like raw emotion all over again. And I never really get to heal. It's like a wound that never gets to heal. And then it just opens up again. And it just keeps on bleeding. I can't even form the scab because I just keep on allowing it to open up.
But don't you have to go through it?
You do have to go through it. You do have to go through it. But what I'm saying is that if you are going to do something that's only going to cause you more harm, then find the thing that you can do that's going to help you with your healing, that's going to be helpful to you. It's not going to negate the fact that it's going to still hurt. It's still going to be difficult to confront those feelings and to confront those thoughts and just to deal with life. But if what you're doing is only making it worse, you got to assess, should I still be doing this? Maybe I need to put that down for a season and move into something else. Maybe I'm getting into nature. Maybe I'm journaling. Maybe I'm doing a memorial for him. I'm finding different things to honor him and to move through my grief that actually helps me versus making me feel worse. If that makes sense.
It does now. It does now. There's a lot of people that have been coming in the chat. If you all have any questions for Petra, just drop them respectfully. Drop them in the chat, and I'll keep going through some of these comments.
Okay.
Yes, the insensitive comments are just too much.
Yes.
She also said, "My finances."
My fiance.
Oh,
was murdered.
thank you, fiance. Oh. He was unalive and I didn't know what to do with myself. And no one else did either, trying to support me mentally.
Wow.
I'm sorry to hear that about your fiance.
So sorry to hear that.
Oh my God. Either trying to support me mentally. Right.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. When people don't know what to do, that are supposed to be the ones that love you or they're supposed to be your friends, the other thing that they may do is just avoid you. They will ignore you, or worse, they will see you and pretend like nothing traumatic has happened in your life. They may know that your husband, your spouse, your fiance, your sibling, someone has died, and they will see you in mixed circles and talk to you normal as if you never just lost that person. And for me, when I saw that happen, I was like,
I was going to ask you that. Did that happen to you?
Several times. And I thought, I know you know that he died. And the fact that you're talking to me like, hey, Petra, how you doing? And not even acknowledgement. I don't need you to make it better. I just need you to acknowledge that the man died. And then people will do that sometimes. And I don't know if it's that because they're so uncomfortable, but that stuff really threw me for a loop. Because I experienced that by more than one person. Just, that hurts. That hurts. That hurts.
Let me ask you this. When you said that when you or any people, they experience a loss, that it changes them, how did it change you?
So initially, I was so shocked by the death. I thought nothing like this would happen to me. I've never experienced anything like that. And so I started to get anxious. I started to get worried about my mom and thinking about people closest to me that they're going to die. And so I would be checking in with my mom and texting her just to make sure she's still alive. Because I thought, my God, if my husband could die so suddenly and unexpectedly, well, who else is going to die? Who else is this going to happen to? And so I had to work through my own anxiety. I had to work through my own beliefs and mindset around grief. Otherwise, every day I would just be operating out of fear. And so it impacted me that way. I stopped taking things for granted and stopped assuming I had more time. Because at any time, your life can be taken. You cannot control when and how we will die.
Right.
And I can tell you this, one of the experiences I had, my husband and I were working on the will, and the lawyer said, well, come on the weekend and you can sign the documents. And I thought, in my mind, I said, my husband's not going anywhere. We will come and sign on Monday. My husband died Sunday night.
No way.
He did.
You are kidding
I
me.
wish I was. I wish I was.
What?
This man, the lawyer, just told us a story about this type of situation happening. And I thought, this ain't gonna, I mean, my husband's all right. He's gonna be fine. No, he died that Sunday night. And so how it changed me was, don't assume that I was talking to my husband from the morning and afternoon, and by that same night, on that same day, he was dead. So how it's changed me is I don't assume I have more time. I don't assume I have more time to make things right. I don't assume I have more time to do the things that I'm called to do, because at any moment, life can change. And so it changed me that I don't procrastinate. I don't assume if I have to do something, I'm like, get up and go do it.
Wow.
Call that person. If someone comes to my mind, I'll send them a text and say, you know what? I was thinking about you today. Are you okay? Because sometimes we'll be like, oh, I'll call them tomorrow. I'm like, no, if they came to your mind, just call them. Because we don't know. We don't know.
That's some real stuff right there. I can see why you would not assume.
Yeah.
Based on that.
Why would I think something would happen to him? I mean, yeah, he's been going through some health challenges, but I wasn't thinking this man was going to die. I was like, I don't feel like it. I don't want to spend my day in the lawyer's office on the weekend. And he was gone. And so he was 42.
Woo, that's young.
It is young. And the last thing you want to be doing is trying to navigate through grief, having to go through probate court and jumping through all these hoops, trying to demonstrate that you're entitled to things as a wife because you didn't do these things when you weren't in crisis. And that's why I'm a strong advocate. Get your will together, get your estate together, because no one wants to deal with this while you're grieving and while you're in crisis. Do it for the people that you love that remain. I'm a strong advocate. Get it done. Don't wait. Just go do it. It cost me. It cost me.
Did it?
Cost me.
Was it a long drawn out? Wait, what?
It was at least 6 months, but it cost me financially. It cost me emotionally, because I couldn't even really address my grief until I got through all this stuff, because I didn't want to lose everything. So I couldn't even really start to really move through my grief. It was more like a delayed grief. I had to work through all the stuff.
Wow.
That was a tough lesson. And that's why I say to people, please don't wait. Just get it done. Get it done.
Right. Let's see. Another comment is, yes, the look of grief is different for everyone. Yes. Oh, I read that already. Grief isn't cookie cutter. Queen Cole. Hey, Queen. She said, that's true. It's not linear.
It's not.
And Candy's agreeing. Let's see. Okay. Come get this commentary. She's like, hey, Kiva. Her name is Kiva.
Awesome,
and she appreciates the conversation. Hi, Kiva. Kiva, thank you for all your commentary on, well, that is her name on YouTube. Come get this commentary.
I love it.
Yeah. Read that one. Let's see. She said, no need for unsolicited advice at any time. That goes back to being that fixer and a rescuer.
Yes. Maybe if you did, or maybe you should do what you know about what I should and should not be doing. Unless I ask you, do not offer it. It is not helpful. It truly isn't. And I deal with clients that are literally upset, agitated, hurt, because people are trying to tell them how they're supposed to experience their grief and what they're supposed to do. No, you're not an expert on that person's life.
It's very invalidating.
Very much so. Very much so.
Going back to what Candy said about grieving a person that's physically here.
Yes.
It seems like it's like a compounded grieving, because they're here and you're grieving on what could have, should have been. Right. And then when the actual transition goes, then that's another layer 100%. Of the grief. That's a
Absolutely.
lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. I have an aunt right now. 1 year difference. Last year she was talking and engaging me. This year she don't even know my name. Don't even recognize me.
Mm.
This is a woman that was an educator. She was has her master's, just a powerhouse of a woman. And to
Mm-hmm.
see how this now disease has taken so much from her, it's heartbreaking. So you grieve long before that person dies, but then you grieve again when they're no longer physically here. 100%.
Wow. This one as well. Candy said you can ask them, I'm here for you. Let me know how I love that. Let me know how I can support you. And if
Right.
you don't know how I can, just know that I'm here.
100%. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Because most times that's what people just want to know, that you're here. And then you be there, that you show up. You show
Mm-hmm.
up. Half the
Mm-hmm.
battle right there is being able to show up and be present and not allow what you think they should have and what you think they should need be what guides you. Don't make it about
Mm.
yourself.
I love what you said, not show up for what you think they need.
Right.
It's what they ask for. And
Right.
like she said about just hold space for them.
Space. Yes.
Queen said, teach us.
Wow.
In
We're learning
caps.
from each other. We are learning from each other because grief touches all of us.
Absolutely. And she also said, or when people get stuck in the anger phase of grief,
Mhm.
that's when their grief really takes a hold of your life.
Mhm.
So I used to be in the dental field a while ago, and I was talking to this one patient, and she had lost her adult daughter. And
Wow.
so she was a believer as well. While she was speaking, I felt like but it wasn't my place. But it did sound like a bunch of the spiritual bypassing, but she's in a better place, and just all the glitz and glitter, but it wasn't real. Even then, I knew like she's holding a lot in.
Yeah.
And I would ask her how is she doing when she would come in for her appointments. And she said, when I asked her that, she said she felt so much better. I said, well, what did something happen or did you do something? She said um, she came back from, I think she said she came back from church,
Okay.
and she had it up to here with all the words that we just talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
She said she was drinking some coffee or tea,
Right. Yeah.
and a thought went through her head of all what was said to her, and she
Right.
threw the mug down.
Yeah.
Glass was everywhere.
Yeah.
And she said something came over me. She said, I wrecked my entire house.
Wow.
She broke everything, furniture, plates,
Mhm.
glasses,
Wow.
tables, lamps, destroyed TV. She's like, I destroyed my house,
Wow.
screaming. And she said she remembers when she did it, but she doesn't remember.
Sure. Yeah.
Like it's out of body. And she said, I felt so much better. And she said when she finally came to, she looked at her place. She said it looked like someone broke in and just
Right.
destroyed her home, which it was
Mhm.
her. But she
Right.
said she felt so much better. She's like, cleaning up the mess, it didn't bother me.
Right. Yes. Because what she was holding in, she was now able to now release authentically. Because, like you said
Mm,
before about the whole people pleasing and the performance, and we put the mask on, and we're still in this kind of role, and we're not really allowing ourselves to be in the messiness that comes with grief. We're trying to hold it together so people be like, oh, you're so strong. And it's like you get tired of hearing that. You get tired of hearing people tell you how strong you are. You get tired of putting on this performance. And then you
yeah.
get to the point where it's like, I gotta let this go. I can't keep this in me because it is eating me alive. And so, yeah, it was, her damaging her home, but she got what was really pent up inside of her out. And now she can
Hmm.
continue to do the work of continuing to heal.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because now
Uh,
she's being real now, right? It's being real.
right. Yeah. And she looked different,
That's so good.
like a lighter.
Yeah.
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 So Candy said, yes, trauma is what happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
Healing is a choice you make to transmute the trauma into something that happens for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Candy. Candy's
Mm-hmm.
dropping these gems
And he's
as
coming
well.
in strong. Coming in strong. I love it.
Yeah, she's very intuitive.
I
She's
love
my
it.
YouTube sister.
That's awesome.
Candy, if you can put in the chat when you said I need to drop that. Oh, talking about her trademark up what she just said.
Okay.
Mhm. Got it now. So you hit
Oh.
with Queen Cool. Let's see. Okay, Candy said that she's a believer as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you have to know the Bible for yourself and not let quote unquote religion,
Mm-hmm.
which is different than a personal relationship with Jesus and God, hinder you from healing.
100%. 100%.
Yes, all loss is grief. That's why they call divorce a death off. Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. I want to say something about that divorce thing though, because I would have people who experience a divorce, and women will come into my DMs and say, well, you know, a lot of what you're sharing is like it's like how I'm feeling with my divorce. And I'm just like, 100% you've gone through a loss. But you can't say that what you're going through and what I'm going through is the same thing.
Mm.
And that can be hurtful to a widow who I will never be able to bump into my husband at a mixed crowd. There will be no opportunity to come back together because I know that some people who divorce, they reconcile and they get married again. So we cannot say things like that because it's insensitive. I will not say to someone who's going through a divorce that you're not experiencing significant loss. It is. But let's not compare and make it seem like it's the same thing because it's not.
Is it like comparing traumas?
You know, I don't even know if it's comparing traumas, but it's comparing something that's just a different type of loss. Not bad or not worse or better, just different. And so when people used to say to me, well, I lost an auntie that was really close to me. I mean, what does you losing an auntie have to do with me losing my husband? In
Mm.
people's attempts to try to like, you know, come into something in common, they say things that can be insensitive. You can't tell me it's the same. We just focus on your own loss. Don't
Mhm.
compare. My
Yeah.
loss is not greater than your loss. A parent who loses a child is not a worse loss than my loss. There is no worse loss. A loss is a loss. So let's avoid saying, I get it. I understand. No, you don't. You don't understand
Right.
what it means to lose a husband. I don't know what it feels like to lose a child. So let's stop using that language of trying to say, oh, yes, I lost so and so that's the same. No, no, no. It's not the same. We just stay in our lane and focus on what our grief is and what our loss is without comparison, because there is no comparison.
Hmm. Hi, Tiffany Santana.
Oh,
She's
Tiffany! I know this my girl.
she said it's like saying, I know how you feel.
Oh,
I've had a habit of saying that. Not I just said it.
yeah,
And I felt like it was the right thing to say and
sure.
comforting. But I'm telling you, this conversation has made me a lot more mindful of what just I see this as an opportunity to course correct
Yeah,
how I
yes,
deliver
yeah.
my condolences or just how I just my conversation.
Absolutely. You know what? The biggest thing I say to people is not about the thing that you need to say. It's not about saying the right thing. It's
Mm.
how you can be. And what how you can be is being present, holding space, showing compassion, not being judgmental or critical, not trying to fix. Just be present. Show up. Show kindness, show patience, show love. Don't try to figure out what's best to say. I am sorry for your loss is more than enough. We don't need more than that.
Mm-hmm.
We really don't. Because anything more becomes more about you. Anything else you try to say becomes more about you. Unless you're talking to me and saying, you know what, tell me a little bit more about your husband. What are some of those things, that memories that really touch you, that you can
Oh,
reflect on. Let that person talk about the good things about the person they lost. That's great if they're ready for it and are open to that. But
right.
trying to fill the space with these words and these cliches is just offensive. And because we have these people pleasing tendencies, we sit through these things that make our skin crawl versus saying, you know what, that's not helpful. I'm going to stop.
Right.
That's not helpful. I mean, I didn't say it. People said so much stupid stuff to me, and I just like, I should have told them, but I didn't have. I was people pleasing, former people pleasing back in those days, and I just kind of roll with it. I roll with it. I didn't speak up. I didn't say anything about it because, quite frankly, I had so much else going on that I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to have to now educate you on what to say
Ooh.
and not say to me.
Oh my God. That's a
I was just
word
trying to
right
take care of
there.
me, right? Oh, there's so much, Ursula.
I would love to have you come back again. I mean, I really feel like this is like the tip of the iceberg. I mean, is it just
Oh
me?
my
You
God.
all talk to me in the chat. Have you all been learning anything new, or is it just me? Drop a one or share your own experience. Matter of fact, drop in the chat of something that you learned today just listening from our conversation. I mean, I've learned a lot, and it is
Good.
so much.
Yeah.
Um,
I love what Kenny just said. Being strong doesn't give you the grace to be human. Yeah. Yeah.
so let's keep it real.
Yes.
In your experience, do we as sisters, do we show up a little differently than our counterparts? Because we just have that strong black woman trope and we just
Yes. Absolutely.
really
And people then think that because you don't look like what you're going through, that
Mhm.
you're okay. And so they'll start to engage you like normal because they feel like, oh wow, you bounce back, you're strong, you got this, da da da. And so you may not get as much compassion, you may not get as much support because people think that you're all right because you look all right. And that's why I posted on my IG to say, and it was a picture of me smiling because I'm like, grief can look like this, where I could be
Mhm.
smiling and I could be laughing, but doesn't mean that I'm not hurting on the inside. People
Mm.
assume that grief only looks like what we see in social media and what we see in television. What happens when it doesn't look that way? When your grief does not match the images that you've seen, where someone is still able to laugh and smile, but they're still feeling empty inside. But you don't
Mm.
know because you're just looking at my face and you're looking at the fact that I'm functioning. So they're like, oh, she's okay. How do you know? If you're just judging based on the fact that I don't wear my feelings on my sleeve,
Mhm.
how do you know? That's why conversations like these are so important.
I was just getting ready to say that. That's why communication is key.
Yeah.
That's why. That is exactly why. What about when you experience grief and loss from someone who is a monster?
Yeah. It gets complicated with that
Ooh.
because you have your feelings about the loss because you may have shared your life with this person, but you also have the complication and tension around this person mistreated me. And so there is the grief around how much you've endured, the trauma around how much you've endured in a very abusive type of situation. And whatever that abuse might be, maybe it's physical, emotional, maybe it's
Mhm.
that person that was abusing substance and the impact that it had on the relationship. And so it's navigating through the trauma of that, plus the loss, because your whole life still has changed as a result of this person no longer being here. And even if they were a monster, you're still human. It still impacts you. And so you
Mhm.
have the tension of people feel I should be hating this person, but there's a part of me that feels sad. And it's like trying to understand, well, should I feel happy about this? Or should I feel sad about this? And I'm mixed in with all these emotions, trying to make sense of all the things that I'm feeling. And it's really to normalize that it's okay to feel both. That if you have the anger and part of you relief, and then part of you is sadness because you reflect on all that you've navigated through.
Wow. That seems like it's like a blender and you're putting all these conflicting emotions in it. That is A lot going on.
A lot going on. And not enough people talk about that part.
Exactly.
That
So
part.
let me share this with you. This just recently came up on my timeline. It's in a social media group, and this person posted, it was an obituary,
Okay.
and the obituary was from a daughter. Her mother had passed away, and the daughter, she wrote the facts of
Okay.
what that timeline was like.
Right.
She mentioned, and it was the way I read it, it wasn't that she was outing people, she wasn't doing it to get back. She was stating the facts that
Right.
sometimes just because someone passes away does not make them an automatic, they've been angelic on this earth while they were here.
True.
This woman stated the facts of
Right.
just how the mom let SA go when she was a child, that the little girl was SA'd.
Wow.
um the lying and blaming other people, who there was a, oh my god, it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was amazing to read, because this woman stood in her truth when she wrote this obituary. And then
Mm-hmm.
she said at the last paragraph, there will not be a service.
Right.
We pray that the other family members can heal in their own way, but
Right.
because I'm the immediate
Right.
family, there will
Yeah.
be no service.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I go on a TikTok rabbit hole, and that is a lot more common than I thought it was. And there was I think it could have been in Canada. I have to look it up.
Okay.
Believe it or not, either Canada or Detroit. I don't know why those two are pointing in my head.
Close enough. Yes.
Right. And a woman wrote out an obituary. It was similar to that. And the newspaper decided to remove it because they felt she was being too harsh. So
Mm.
to me, they were invalidating how she was feeling, and the way I read it, she was stating the facts. This is the life that it was her dad in this story. This is his
Right.
life. This is his
Right.
legacy that he has
Mm-hmm.
left behind. And
Right.
she too also said that there will be no service.
Right.
She wasn't going to apologize for his behavior when he was in his last days at the hospital, but she
Right.
said she does have empathy for the hospital staff because they had to endure just a small portion compared to what she had, so she knows what they've gone through.
Right.
So
Yeah.
man, it was heavy, but if empowering at the same time, because she was speaking how she felt. I just feel like families, we keep so much secrecy and
Yes. There is so much. And I said this not too long ago that a lot of us suffer in silence. And we have this performance, we have this mask, and we don't really say the things that we're truly feeling. And so people don't really know what you're going through because you're not really open about it. And then the other side to that is we don't always know who we can let our guard down and be safe to share those true, real, raw feelings without judgment. And so a lot of times we navigate through things alone. We suffer alone, right? And
yeah,
that is not helpful either. You know, I always say we need to have safer places where we can be unfiltered and be raw and not be judged and allow people to
exactly.
express what they need to express as long as it's not harmful to yourself or others, because we're not trying to be abusive to other people in the space, but allow people to just release what they need to release.
Absolutely. Uh, Candy said vulnerable share. I had to cut off family members for own mental and emotional well-being.
Yeah, you got
And
sometimes you
she
have to
does
create
that.
those
That
boundaries.
much
Yeah.
I do. Excuse me, I'm sorry, what?
No, I said sometimes you have to create those boundaries. I mean, for me, I don't know if I've intentionally cut people off, but I will spend less time. Particularly if, I heard this from my coach years ago, and I still think it's true, that if your family is toxic or they're difficult to be around, spend less time, go less often. And so if you can only take them in little spouts and short spurts and be like, okay, gotta go, you just know yourself and how much you're able to take when it comes to family. But if there's someone that's very abusive, then yeah, I wouldn't be around them. You got to create those boundaries for yourself, for sure.
Absolutely. So you're talking about boundaries and creating safe spaces. Can you talk about the program that you have for the widows?
So I have not launched that program yet. I will be
Oh,
hopefully wrapping up a few fine details, and my goal is to launch it in the new year. But that really is a program for widows who are maybe they are a little farther along in their journey, not acute grief, but they're maybe 2, 3 years in and wanting to learn, okay, where do I go from here? Because oftentimes a common theme that we hear is that I'm lost. I'm still trying to navigate how to carry my grief and live life. What does that look like? How do I do it? And how do I do it in a way that I don't feel guilt about that? I don't feel guilt for wanting to enjoy life again as if it dishonors my husband in some way. So I really want to help support widows to work through some of that so that they can still live a life that's fulfilling and meaningful to them.
so so have you heard that some widows, they do feel like they have to, I guess, partner honoring their partner is to stay in that grieving space as opposed to moving on?
There is a lot of guilt, a lot of regret, a lot of shame, and sometimes we benefit after the husband has died. So, for instance, I got an insurance, I got my husband's work insurance, I get his pension. And so that would never have come to me had he not died. And so you have some of that survivor guilt. You have some of
Oh,
that, well, should I be laughing? Like I'm enjoying this new chapter of my life, but he's not here to enjoy the dreams that we talked about. And so there is that conflict and that tension that
mm-hmm.
exists there around feeling like I shouldn't be able to enjoy this happiness because he's not here and I wouldn't have certain things had he not died. And so how do we work through some of those types of things? Because guilt is real in grief. It's quite common.
Did you ever experience survivor's guilt?
Absolutely, I did. I did in the beginning. And you know what? And I didn't realize that at the time until this year. This year is my 5th year since the death of my husband. And I had been wearing my wedding ring um, throughout the 5 years. And I feel somewhere in my subconscious, I thought that if I took it off, somehow I was saying that I forgot, that I was moving on, that somehow I was being disloyal. And I didn't even realize that's what I was carrying until I took it off. And then when I tried to put it back on, I couldn't, because it was like, no, it's time to let it go. When I say let it go, let go of holding on to that ring, because that ring does not symbolize the bond that continues on even though he's dead. That bond will never be broken, and a ring is not going to be the thing that keeps us linked. We already have a bond because of the love.
Wow. Wow.
When things changed for me, I was like, whoa, okay, all right.
Did
And then I
it
was able to take it off and haven't had a desire to put it back on since.
really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
But it's a journey, right? Like it took me 5 years and I wasn't even aware. And that's why I say there's a lot of things we are feeling and going through that we don't have language for or we're not aware of. And so the more we get in spaces where we can have conversations or we can process, or if you're seeing a counselor or a coach and they're asking certain questions that help you to dig deeper, then it unlocks some truth for you and realizations for you. And you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing for me. I didn't know I was carrying guilt about that. But now something has been awakened for me to get more self-awareness.
Yes, exactly. Just like I learned from you, I never heard of situational depression or situational grief. One of the two you said. I never.
Well, certain things will happen that you'll have like an episode and it's more specific to that scenario. It doesn't mean that there's a chemical imbalance or that you're clinically depressed. You could be just in a situation right now that is causing you to have more sadness during that season, but doesn't mean that you're necessarily clinically depressed, where you need to have medication and there's a formal diagnosis. It could be a season that you are in.
Wow. You just saved me from a TikTok deep dive. I will go boy, I will stay on it and I will look at other people who I have to hear one phrase and it's a wrap. I can hear a lot. So let's talk about your book.
Absolutely. So my book is called Faith in the Fire. And I really wrote that book out of all that I was experiencing with the death of my husband. But it's a book that's not just about the death of my husband. I talk about the death of my father. I talk about, going through endometriosis and having to grieve the loss of not being able to have children. And it just talks about the adversity that I've had to navigate through, and that what my cornerstone has been when everything in my world was chaotic, didn't make any sense. What was constant was God. And I didn't know how I was going to get through it, didn't know when I was going to get through it. But one thing I knew is that God was constantly being there for me when my back was up against the wall. And it seemed like, no one else could work this out. It's like, this stuff is supernatural because no one else could have figured this out. No one else could have opened this door. But it was God. And the fact that I didn't lose my mind, where there were so many things that were happening that could have made that happen.
Mm-hmm.
He was my cornerstone. He was my anchor. And so I talk about just all the things that I experienced and how God brought me through it. And I think that for anyone who may be going through adversity, whether that is a loss, a life transition, financial challenges, because I talk about that, there's value. And at the end of every chapter, there is just some key points of things and principles and things that you can really carry on forward, and practical things that you can use as you're navigating through different challenges, and just to help you on your life as you're going through adversity. Because for me, the belief is that faith is not in the absence of adversity. Being able to have faith while you're still going through. And it doesn't mean that when we're navigating through life, there's not going to be challenges. There will be challenges. But the ability to have faith, even when there's chaos, even when there's storms, even when all hell's breaking loose.
Right.
How do I still walk that out? Because there's always going to be that tension between good things happening and bad things happening.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. The tension. That is so true. Woo. What would you suggest for anyone who wants to start their healing journey from, I guess, would you call it acute loss, or maybe what's the opposite of acute? What is it? Long term? I don't know.
I stay away from the whole, because I know that there's some things that are being said about prolonged grief and people trying to, I shouldn't say people, like I know that there is a diagnosis and it could be prolonged grief, but I just feel like grief is a natural response, and I stay away from trying to label people and trying to give time frames to say, oh, well, if it's more than 12 months, then you must be, and giving a label. No. I think every person, because it's so sensitive and so personal, has to decide for themselves what they need in that moment. They may not be ready for counseling. They may not be ready to talk about it. And so it may take time. It takes a lot of courage to reach out and say, I need some help, or I want to talk about this. I know for me, I didn't feel like talking about it. I didn't want to, because for one, I didn't want to have to deal with people trying to make me feel better. So it was like, I had to find what worked for me. And
But when you say you didn't want to have to deal with anyone trying to make you feel better, you mean in that selfish way, or just in general?
Trying to say things to try to uplift me. And I'm just like, I don't need you to try to uplift me right now. I'm grieving. So if I cry, let me cry. If I want to be alone right now, let me be alone. And don't tell me, well, why would you want to be alone? I don't have to explain why I want to be alone. Allow me to have the moment, because if that's helpful to me, then it's helpful to me, even if that's not what you would want.
Right.
You may want a lot of people around you. I didn't. Right? So I think people got to discover, and that's why I say that people explore and get curious and discover what works for you. Maybe be in groups is helpful because there's other people sharing and you can sit and listen, and maybe you're not ready to speak. Maybe it's grief counseling. And maybe you may feel as time goes on, you might be ready for a grief coach because you're feeling like, okay, I'm plateaued now. Like, now what can I do to continue to move my life forward? Because you can plateau and be like, okay, now what? The funeral is over. I'm back to work. Now what I want to do with my life? Now who am I? Right? So it's personal. I feel it's personal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. I like what you said about the plateau part. Candy's continuing to drop some gems. She said you also have to grieve the version of yourself that you thought you would be with him. The ring symbolized that version of you, and taking it off freed you to become the new version of you.
100%. I felt like something lifted.
Really?
I did. I felt like I didn't even know I was carrying a weight. But when I took that off, I felt like I had the freedom to step into this newness, to fully embrace the woman that I am becoming. And it didn't mean that I had forgotten, didn't mean that I no longer grieved. It meant that now I was allowing myself to evolve and grow and embrace who I am becoming and where I desire to be. And that freed me in such a powerful way because I felt a weight. I did. I didn't even know I was carrying it.
How does it make you feel when you see some of your clients release that weight, whatever their weight look like?
It's awesome to see people get the aha moments and they start to see and get some deeper insight around themselves and the journey. And they start, I see them from when they begin with me, and then I see it as they journey through and how they're able to transfer some of the things that they're learning. And that's what you want to see. You want to see people be able to use some of the tools and be able to integrate it into their life. And then they get to a point where they no longer really need you. They may come back for some touch-up talks or what have you, but now they're learning how to carry on with life, move forward with life while grieving. I can grieve and still live. I can still navigate into the things that I love while still navigating through this grief, because grief is not going to end. It's not going to end. We're just learning how to grow our life around it, and we're learning how to carry it in such a way that it does not dominate our lives and stop us from living and enjoying it.
That's a bar right there.
Yeah.
You can grieve and live.
Yes.
I want everybody to, I dropped Petra's all her links, her link tree, her Instagram, her book where you can purchase. Everything is in the comment thread, and it's also in the show description notes. I strongly urge you all to go to her Instagram because it's a lot on there. I read the comments that people put as well, and I get those aha moments as well, because I'm thinking, oh, they feel the same way, you know. And it's just something about community when you know that you're not the only person, and you have people in your tribe who you probably will never meet. But
so true. You know what it feels like? You feel seen. You feel seen.
Is that what it is?
Yes, because it's like, it's like you are speaking exactly, and some people say that to me, your words, it's like you're speaking directly to me. It's like you are speaking right at me because they can relate and hold to those words and say, that's me. And then they know they're not alone.
And the way, Petra, let me tell you, the way you stare in that camera, it's looking through my soul. Oh my God. I promise it's intense, but not so intense that I don't want to look away. It's like I want to hear more. I'm crying. I feel seen, as you said. I feel validated, and
yes.
The way you look through that camera, like, is she going to blink? She's talking to
me. But you know what? That's what I've learned. I speak as if I am talking to one person. And so when I'm looking in that camera, it's like they're right with me and I'm speaking to them. And so I connect with that when I'm doing those reels. It's like
Yes.
talking to you. When I'm writing, I'm talking to you. I'm
Yes.
speaking to you like you were right here in front of me, as if you were right here in front of me.
Ooh. Well, it's working.
That's awesome.
I'm
I'm
telling you.
glad. I'm
I'm
glad. And that's
telling
not
you.
in vain. Good.
Yeah. I would love to have you back. We could talk offline, but this was a lot in a good way. I
Yeah.
feel better. I'm probably gonna get off and cry later on tonight, but just
All
as a
right.
release.
That's all right.
Yeah, because I just
Mhm.
have new insight and I'm really gonna go back and take a look at this video because I know I may have missed some things, but this really spoke to my soul. And I thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
Um, much needed. Can we end on a lighter note?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna put a slide on the screen
Okay.
because this is also going to be an audio podcast. I want you
Okay.
to read what is on the screen and then follow the directions.
Okay. One must go. Sushi, nachos, McDonald's fries, or bacon. Am I asking myself this question?
Yes,
Which one must go?
ma'am. This is for you. One must go.
Oh, one must go.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I like them all, to be honest. But you know what? I'm gonna say McDonald's fries because I know they can't decompose. They don't decompose. So I'm thinking no food that can't decompose must not be real food. So that must go.
It can't decompose. I didn't know
Well,
that.
I'll tell you something. I remember finding a fry that was hidden somewhere in my car, and it was like there for like God knows how long, and it did not discolor. There was no mold on it, and I'm like, how is that possible? The food,
What?
if it's real food, it should decompose. It should get mold. It should look different, and it didn't. So it had me thinking, what is in this fry? Because fries should look different. Food should spoil if it's real food.
What in the
I'm just saying,
preservative is going on here?
girl.
All right, here's another one. One must
One
go.
must go. All right. Donuts, ice cream, popcorn, potato chips. Oh man, this is hard too.
And then people in the chat, you can put your choice in here as well.
I mean, I don't want any of them to go, to be honest. I'm going to say the potato chips because I'll have a crave for a donut in a minute. So, and I love ice cream and popcorn. I'll have that as a regular snack. So I'm going to say the Lay's potato chips.
Okay, we have similar taste in food. All right, here you go. Well, this is kind of similar. Well, not
Ooh, one must go. So we got potatoes. Is that potato chips or nachos?
those
That looks like
are
there's cookies, there's cereal, and there's like a whole lot of candy.
uh-huh.
You know what? I'm not a heavy candy eater. Sometimes I'll get a little crazy with the Skittles. So I'm going to say the candy. The candy must go.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here is the last one.
Okay.
This is the drum
Drum roll.
drum roll.
Woo! One has to go and all his work. Oh my gosh. How? How? How do you decide here?
Go ahead and read what's on the screen.
One has to go and all his work. Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman. What is that? Samuel L. Jackson,
Uh-huh.
Eddie Murphy, Will Smith, and Lawrence Fishburne. What, woman? Really? Really? Well, I mean, oh man,
And
this
you
is
have
hard.
30 seconds. That's how
All
we're
right,
gonna
you know
put the
what?
pressure on.
I'm gonna say Sam. I'm gonna say Samuel. No offense, Sam. I love you. I mean, A Time to Kill was like, I mean, brilliant work. But I would say the other ones are my favorite, more of my favorites. So I'll say Sam. Man, that was hard. That was a hard one. That was a hard one. You know, I was gonna say Denzel. I was like, Denzel is just find out one. He does not get old. I don't care what he does. He will always be brilliant. Woo.
I love it. Any parting words, my dear?
What I will say, you know, we all are touched by grief and loss, all of us. And so it's important for us to give ourselves grace, to extend our compassion and kindness to ourselves as we're navigating through the losses, and to not feel that we have to be on someone else's timetable of how we work through our grief. And it's important to find the right communities that can be a safe space to share, to have others witness and see your grief, and to process it so that you can heal and so that you can grow and continue to take those steps forward, one step at a time.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And keep doing the work you do. We need you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We do. We need you. And it's an extra added bonus that you look like us. And that sisters.
Oh, let me tell you something about that. I am finding in the grief space that there is not a lot of representation of people of color, either in therapy or just on grief platforms. I've seen conferences and workshops, and I might just see one person of color. So there's a need for representation in this space when it comes to grief work. I just want to put that out there because I'm just blown away by the lack of representation.
Absolutely. And what I love about it is that, especially with this Black superwoman trope that has been around for decades, that we could look at someone like yourself you're a mirror image of us, and you can still, I even hate that term strong Black woman, but you can still grieve and live at the same time. And it's okay to be a sister and be vulnerable.
Yes, 100%.
Because we're human. We're human.
Yeah.
We're human. So like I said, I love everything you're doing. Thank you so much. And the chat loved you as well.
Oh, thank you so much for your kindness. It's a pleasure. I love this conversation. I love doing stuff like this because we need more of these conversations. We do, to normalize grief and loss.
Yes, the normal. Oh, and Petra, guess what?
What?
You are a Black girl that has her shift together.
Hey!
For the queen, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, Black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a Black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These Black girls getting a shift together, man. These Black girls are getting a shift together. These Black girls getting